My name is Jimmy Lewis.
And I'm Mattoon.
And this is the Better Rider Podcast. It's a podcast for Jimmy Lewis Off-Road Training School. Is that what we call us? School?
Yeah, we're a riding school.
Riding school. That's good. So in this podcast, we give you tips, techniques, talk a little bit about riding technique and how it can make you a better rider. That's the name of the podcast. So this episode, we're going to get into the topic of standing up, because whether you are an adventure rider or you're a dual sport rider or you're racing off-road or you're racing motocross, everybody's always telling you to stand up, stand up. You need to stand up. And the question is, why do you need to stand up? And what are you trying to accomplish by doing this? So we see a lot of people that are trying to stand up and they're not standing up.
Right.
They're hanging on. It's not standing up. And the reason for standing up is because it is, if done properly, you're doing a number of things. You're putting your weight in a beneficial part of the motorcycle, which is the foot pegs. The reason to stand up is to get your weight off the seat and down on the foot pegs. So some people say, well, you're lowering the center of gravity, and this isn't true. Some people would like to explain to other people that you're altering the polar moment of inertia. Matt is a physicist. We talked about this in his episode. Understands some of the things I'm saying. I don't. I just know how they work. So, but the reason, couple other reasons you stand up is, or you're told why you stand up, is it gives you better traction, which it can. It also will allow the bike to move around underneath you, so it isolates you from the bike a lot more. Right. So there's lots of reasons to stand up, and for sure in a large number of situations, it is the best position. But what we find is most people are not actually standing up.
Correct. A lot of times in the school, what we see is people doing more of a squat, or if they stand up, their hips are too far forward or their hips are too far back and they're actually leaning down. And then they don't anticipate the acceleration or the braking. So that's where you get that hanging on sensation too.
Yeah. So they're just generally their body is out of balance. And you're standing on a foot peg, not a platform. So all of a sudden, there's so much that goes into standing up, and it's not something that you're gonna pick up right away. And this is why most riders are not standing up properly. It's hard to balance on a peg as opposed to heel to toe, what you ordinarily do on your feet. When you're standing up and walking around, which, by the way, most of us don't walk around with a handlebar in our hand or something to grab onto, which the motorcycle provides in the handlebar. So it's the crutch is the handlebar. So you can have a bad foot position and then you can hang on with the handlebar and get away with it. You think you can get away with it. This is why you're not really standing up. And then you're sort of this weird out of balance thing. And where it's kind of what really got me thinking about this to explain it better is now in motocross, the new trend, the go fast guys are standing up around a lot of the turns. And they're the guys that are going fast and doing it right are incredible at doing this. No doubt about it. This is not a new technique. I recognized this technique back when I was racing, enduros, especially watching the guys in Europe in the ISDE, riding around grass tracks where the traction is really limited. These guys were standing up around turns where you would think, I need to be sitting down to get traction, and they were standing up and going faster. So, I'd studied it and tried to figure out what they were doing. Of course, it took 20 some odd years to finally understand it. Because nobody explained it to me. Nobody was going to give this away, especially. And I went to different guys that were rider coaches and trainers, and nobody could explain it. So I've learned how to explain it, and I understand how it works, and it works different. But so the fad, and the other thing that got me was a friend of mine said, "Yeah, my kid, he's trying to do all this, standing up. He watches all the videos, and he's trying to stand up around the turns." And I can tell it's slower. He can physically watch him. Like, yeah, because he's not standing up. And there are different types of turns and different types of terrain and different types of traction where you don't want to stand up just because the pros are standing up. Well, number one, they're going way faster than you, and they have bikes that are set up for their riding style, et cetera, and they know the difference.
Yeah.
If standing up was the fastest way to go around a turn, flat track riders, speedway riders, and even road race, and the difference between all these sports is traction, they would be standing up around the turns. So just and we tell people, I ride my adventure bike 99% of the time standing up. But they're like, well, when do you stand up? I stand up when I need to. And how do I know this? Experience. So we'll get to, right now we're talking about going around turns, which is really kind of a weird time to be standing up.
Right.
So it's like we said, the reasons you're standing up and now all the other riding coaches will be able to explain this, right? You're standing up because you want to allow you to put your weight in a better position, which is in the foot pegs, and you want to allow your body to be able to be isolated from the motorcycle. This is the thing, allow the bike to move around. So just generally think about it, when you're in bumps, it's obvious it's better to stand up because the bike's going to be bouncing around. And if you're sitting down in the seat or you're in some sort of a squat, which is the way that a lot of people are actually standing up, you're connected to that bike. And so when it bounces around, you bounce around. Not a good scenario. If you watch a high-level rider, when they stand up, they are allowing the bike to move underneath them. So when they stand up, if their suspension is set up properly, the suspension does all the work, and you don't really see the bike moving or bucking or kicking around. But when it does, they allow that movement. When it starts going the wrong way, they allow it, and then they start anticipating what's going to happen and putting weight where they need to correct the problem, as opposed to getting bucked out and now having to kind of hang on to the handlebars and see what happens next. So these are where we see a lot of the problems. So, and of course, with this episode, we're going to give you a nugget at the end of the thing, just some little thing that you can try or practice or understand, and so it's your reward for watching this free video.
Yeah, it's winter in a lot of places right now, so a little nugget will give you something to think about when that snow melts and you can get back out there on your dirt bike or
something
bike.
Or something to try, even if you are riding. And if you want to find us, we're real easy to find. It's jimmylewisoffroad.com on the web. We have online courses, especially right now. Our beginner courses are out there. So if you want to learn how to get started and get started properly, and frankly, it's probably the beginner course contains 90% of the most important stuff you would ever need.
Yeah.
Because this is the same stuff we teach to novice, same stuff we teach to intermediate.
Yeah.
The same stuff that I take my expert riders and go, how come you can't do this very basic, easy thing? Because this is the problem you're having with all of your riding. So if you're interested in that, check that out. That'll help support us, and maybe we can bring you some more segments like this as well.
More content.
So what do you got, Matt?
Yeah, so essentially what I have right here is one thing that is going to help you maintain that proper form when standing up is regripping a lot. This is something I alluded to it a little bit earlier with my point about what we see a lot of students make mistakes on when it comes to standing.
Yes.
And allowing yourself to regrip, not just with your handlebars, but also with your feet. Because we're not clipped in, this isn't skiing, this isn't snowboarding. So it's important to remember that in order to maintain that proper balanced position, you might have to regrip the handlebars or shift your feet around a little bit.
For sure, from going from sittings to standing, you have to regrip the handlebars. And generally because your position on the motorcycle changes when you stand up. When you're sitting down, typically you're back a little bit. I mean, if you're kind of, you're not being aggressive, like sitting down for a turn, in a racing or motocross or, aggressive position. Yeah. Generally, when you're sitting down, you're kind of back. And when you go to stand up, if you just stood up, your feet are probably not, quote, underneath you at that point. You might have to adjust them. And this is what we see. And it's not just like, forward aft on the foot peg. Sometimes it's side to side. Sometimes you need to grip the side of the motorcycle a little bit with your ankles at that moment. Sometimes you want to put your feet on the more the outer parts of the foot peg to give you some leverage. So it really depends. Sometimes you're standing up using only one foot.
Yeah.
Your other foot is actually coming off to do something, to make a dab or get your foot out of the way if you're going into a turn. So there's a lot of stuff that goes in, and this is the stuff that we work on when we're doing some of the drills in the class. And you could probably take all this information that you're listening and go out and start practicing standing up, and you'll get 60 or 70% of the way there. But it's not until someone can literally, watch you, or you can, have a video yourself and then see what you're doing, because it's amazing. And this is where my nugget's going to really help you out.
Yeah.
It's amazing how out of position people that are standing up are, and they think they're standing up because their butt is off the seat. Lifting your butt off the seat does not constitute standing up.
No. But that brings me to my next point of, if you're struggling standing up, like if you're not in balance, it's often better just to sit down.
Exactly.
Because sitting down balanced is going to be better than standing up out of balanced and out of position. You'll save energy, you'll be riding safer, and you'll just have a lot more control over the motorcycle.
Yeah, and like we said time and time again, there's two things that make all the difference in the world on your motorcycle: balance and traction.
Yeah.
So no matter how you get yourself out of balance, if you want to or you don't want to, that's going to have a big effect on what's going on. And if you want to be in balance, and by standing up you throw yourself out of balance, it's not good. And generally it's not you throwing yourself out of balance. It's the rider standing up and then the bike doing something that knocks them out of balance. And since they're connected to the bike, they are now out of balance with it, and they don't have the ability, even though they're standing up, they don't have the ability to control it. So if you're not comfortable standing up, you should probably be sitting down.
Yeah.
And as you get better, when you start feeling how standing up in balance really helps, then you realize how bad sitting down, even in balance, is.
Right.
So you're probably, when you begin to quote stand up, or if you're like a racing guy and you try to go around these turns, it's not going to feel nearly as comfortable, because you don't feel that comfortable in this.
Yeah.
It's the, and you're going to go slower. And a lot of times, I know we've talked about this in the podcast, why going slow is harder than going the right speed. But then the person that can't go slow also can't go fast, or they can go fast, but they don't know where going too fast is the problem. And standing up does allow you to go faster, ride over more rough terrain, be more in control, but only if you're in balance. So just because you stand up doesn't magically mean you're going to be able to do things better. You've got to learn how to do it in balance, standing up in balance.
Yeah. And if you're getting tired standing up, just sit down and do it sitting down in balance.
If you're standing up properly, you're not going to get tired.
Yeah.
In fact, you're going to become overriding. You're going to be less tired, because if you think about it, if you sit down and all those forces of the bike bouncing around, moving around, and kicking around, you think about how much energy you have to use in your hips and your lower back, how much you have to muscle the handlebars to compensate it. Because I think that you have, I would give it a number. I would say you have 60% to 80% less control sitting down than you do when you're properly standing up. So that means you need to use that much more energy to control the bike, but it beats you up.
It does.
If my chair right now were bouncing up and down,
you wouldn't be sitting on it.
I wouldn't be sitting on it. I'd stand up. It would wear me out. I could not sit at my office all day, typing on my computer while it's bouncing up and down like it would be on a washboard road or riding through some bumps on a track. Hoop-de-doos out in the desert. Hell no, I'm not going to sit down. But if I stood up like I see some people stand up, I'll get way more tired.
Yeah.
Because now I'm trying to do a push-up or a pull-up or a semi-squat.
Yeah.
And all the G forces add to the weight on your legs. No, but I'm standing up properly. I'm standing up just as if I'm standing at the bar having a beer.
Right.
Except I'm not having a beer on my motorcycle.
Well, because we're riding motorcycles. We're supposed to be having fun. We're not supposed to be having a workout. Like I hate the gym, so I ride my dirt bike to get away from all that.
You can make it a riding a workout.
Oh, you can make it a hell of a workout.
Right. But the thing kind of getting back to is everybody's all just stand up, and that's just the catchy thing that all the schools and stuff are saying. And we kind of, I don't want to say we kind of buck the norm. We're just telling you the way it is.
Right.
And everybody says, well, how do I get there? This is what you have to learn and practice. It's not just going to happen because you went to a school for one weekend and you're not instantly going to feel better at standing up. Takes some time and practice. Right.
And you actually brought me to my next point that I wanted to bring up, because you noticed the trend. I've noticed it as well, where everyone's saying, okay, you got to stand up all 100% of the time. One thing to keep in mind, if someone's telling you to stand up, like they're your coach and they're telling you to stand up, you should ask them why. Why should I stand up? Because what's really popular is a lot of people will try to emulate what they see and what they hear without truly understanding. And you want to have that true understanding of why we do this and why we do that. So why do we stand up? Well, we just explained it for this whole podcast.
And standing up is not just get your elbows up or get your butt off the seat. It's physically standing up, and it has to be, like it said, has to be explained in that if you stand up and you don't regrip with your feet, with your hands, you're never going to get there. And this is the things where a lot of times it gets skipped out. And then standing up has a lot to do with bike setup. We did this with you.
With me just recently.
Yeah. I was watching Matt ride, and he's been practicing a bunch, made a huge step, and we're watching him ride, and it's like your ankles are drooped. And it's funny because I know that you rode with Big John, who's a big, tall guy, and he drops his ankles because that's the way he fits on the motorcycle. And I kind of thought, I was sitting there with John at the time. I think maybe Matt watched you ride a lot when you guys first started riding, because you rode together, or in the early days. And I go, maybe that's just something he kind of went to. So he pulled you over and said, "Hey, ankles are dropped." And you're like, "Really?" And then you started feeling it.
Yeah.
And then we watch you ride, and you could see it to go to the natural drop position. And then you correct it and drop and correct it. And then right away it's like bar position.
Yeah. Because instantly the handlebars felt like they were right at my waist, and I felt like I was hanging over them.
Right.
Whereas I want to be that natural, comfortable, just right underneath. I want more underneath my shoulders personally, rather than I don't want it in my belly. Yeah,
in your lap. Yeah, and this is where having the right bar position, but that bar position was throwing you a little bit out of balance. But so to correct for the balance, you were dropping your ankles back, kind of allowing you to move back in the motorcycle, which can be, depending on what you're trying to do, can be advantageous or not. But right away we picked it. And that bike, it's the Yamaha YZ250FX. It has 2-position bars in the front, and you just went out and moved it just to check it.
Yeah, just now. And later today I'm going to ride it and see how it feels.
So you went to the number 3 position, not the number 4, correct?
I believe so.
So it was in 2, which is the clamps in the closer one, spun forward. And then you moved them forward, but spun them backwards, or did you go to 4 all the way forward?
I think I just went all the way forward.
Picked them up, okay.
Yeah.
So this will be interesting because and we're talking at this point like 30 millimeters of movement of the bars, I think, roughly. And you might find that that's too much.
Okay.
It's amazing how much little changes.
Yeah, millimeters make a huge difference when it comes to bike setup.
Like this. And again, it takes a lot of time to feel for it, and you just have to ask yourself, does my rider cockpit fit what I'm doing? And if you we get to the nugget. The nugget's going to answer this question. If you're trying to figure out how, is my thing, my are my bars in the right position? Are my foot pegs in the right position? Everybody's different, and our bodies bend differently, maybe have injuries, things. So you kind of have to work up to it. And I see people make big, grandiose changes. The one that scares me the most is just I need bar risers.
Right.
And that, that causes that pelvis forward. A lot of times it causes the rider to be leaning back.
It really ruins your standing up position.
Yeah. So it's the bike has a lot to do with it. So the other question I get asked, and people have said this before, is they said, "Hey, I'm watching this racer or this guy, and they look like they're squatting or they're bent." And I'm like, no. When you watch what they're doing, they're very balanced, but they're bending at the hip. So this is when you are in a standing position where your legs you're not locked out, but they're mostly straight to your hips, and then you fold at the hips to put your body in the right position. And depending on how fast you're going, and this is the part that these videos are usually of somebody that's riding really fast.
Yeah.
They all of a sudden are very bent over forward. That is the most balanced position they can be on in that motorcycle at that time. And they're also bending forward because when they get on the brakes, they need to get back. And so it's easy for them to, we'll call it fall back as they get on the brakes, so that they're, again, in the most balanced position they can be on the motorcycle. So they're not standing upright because when they are accelerating, they're accelerating so hard. So you think about it, if you're standing up nice and straight, like perpendicular, and you accelerate, you're going to fall backwards. But if you fold at the hips, when you accelerate, you can fall forwards. And this has to do with what we were talking about, anticipating what is going to happen.
And it really boils down to basic physics. You have to prepare action, reaction.
Right.
So you have to prepare your reaction for the action, essentially.
Yeah, because if you gas and you start falling backwards, you're on the backside of the problem.
Yeah.
So because anytime I accelerate, I literally fall forward into the handlebars, and the acceleration of the motorcycle picks me up. So net not using any energy.
Right.
And this is why when you start seeing racers that look like they're kind of bent over, but I always say, look where their head is at. Look where the rider's head is at, and it's generally forward of the seat. You know, it's in a lot of times it's you can look down and their head is looking down at the basically steering stem.
Right.
When you start seeing heads that are farther and farther back, probably not a balanced riding position, and so that's how you can tell where where things are going. Higher level riders tend to have their heads farther forward.
Right.
And higher level riders also, when they crash, they fall over the front of the motorcycle. They don't fall off the back or off to the side.
Right. I think a great place where you can see this is in Supercross whoop sections.
Yeah,
it's a great example. Is watching those top guys and then watch the, not top guys.
Yeah. The top guys are up over the front and standing more standing upright and more forward. Yeah, they're bent because
they're bent at their hips. Yeah.
because that bike can do something crazy, and since you think about it, the wheel is in the air most of the time.
Yeah.
At that point, there's no traction. So at that point, if the front end starts dropping, they need to pull it. They need to use muscles to pull it back. And we talk about this very idealized way of riding where you're not using any muscles, you're not using any energy. It's just that. It's very idealized. Being balanced allows you to have the ability to use that energy or the force to tug, push, pull, twist, grab, weight, counterweight, do all these different things on the motorcycle. If you're out of balance, here's the good thing. You got a 50% chance you're actually anticipating what you want.
Yeah.
But there's also a 50% chance you're going to make it twice as bad. And I don't like to
we don't like
guess.
50-50 odds.
Yeah. I just like to be
just
balanced. And then the other thing that comes with when you stand up and when you're in balance, you start feeling what the motorcycles are doing. So not only do you feel whether your rider compartment, whether your bars and foot pegs and things are in the right place, the bike starts telling you how the suspension's working, how much traction it has. You can start feeling whether your bike's accelerating or decelerating properly.
Right.
When you're out of balance, you're kind of masking, especially the traction. This is why we say balance and traction. They kind of go hand in hand and put things together. So we cover all the topics on our list.
I would say we covered them all.
Okay, so that's how we're going to lean into the nugget. So everybody goes, well, how do I know, Jimmy, how do I know if I'm standing up properly? It's real simple. You should feel as if you can let go of the handlebars, which I don't want you to do this when you're riding, but ask yourself, can I let go of the handlebars? And if you can't let go of the handlebars, you're not in balance and you're for sure not standing up properly. Most people
Right.
can ride down the road on pavement, or on a really good traction situation, sitting down, and they can let go of the handlebars. Especially when they're going a little bit faster, when they have some momentum. This isn't a problem. Well, if you're in that same safe, controlled, nice speed, you can do that standing up, taking into consideration wind resistance. Hopefully you're not going so fast that the wind's going to blow you off the motorcycle. But that's a place to, whether we do it on a dry lake bed,
Right.
where there's nothing to hit and everything, not when you're going down a road when there's cars coming. So you take this, you take the undulation of the terrain and all that stuff out of the equation, perfectly flat, perfectly smooth, good traction. And then that's a place you can start, and you can feel what it feels like to be able to let go of the handlebars. Because once the bike starts moving around, your natural reaction is to grip it, tense up, squeeze, all these things that you hear. And we'll get into those in another episode.
Yeah.
About why some of the things is my next pet peeve is got to grip the bike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are you crashing yet? So anyways, hopefully you like this episode of the Better Rider podcast. We have a few previously recorded ones. You can go back and check. If you enjoyed this, come out and visit us at our school and check out our online stuff at www.jimmylewisoffroad.com. And if you ever want to see us live, talk about crazy motorcycle stuff, we have a show called Tech Talk Taco Tuesday that runs on our sister channel, Dirt Bike Test. So hopefully with this, we will see you out on the trail. So for Matt, I'm Jimmy, and cheers.
See ya.